effectiveness of ergonomic intervention among office workers, particularly call center workers. But I will also be talking about another paper that has been published by the researchers from the University of Cincinnati last year, so which is related to ergonomic lessons as well. So I kind of tied up these two papers because while I was reading, preparing for my lesson in 215 last semester, I was like, this is so much fun to like learn their lessons and then tie it up to my findings. And that's how research works usually. Okay, so does this look familiar? Look at her. Now, this is an adorable gift. Now, these are familiar pictures because these are only two of the examples of how this pandemic has changed our lives, and especially for the working lives of everybody, right? So a lawyer there, the photo above, right? Who didn't know how to change, okay? The photo on his Zoom screen. So he was telling during a live call with a judge saying that I'm here, I'm not a cat. So unfortunate. So, and okay, aside from that, there are also other things that has changed or that have changed because of the pandemic. And a few of those are, of course, when we work from home, we have now, okay, you will not see me at home wearing this. Okay, you will see me in my pajamas. If I turn off my cameras, you know what's happening. I'm not wearing my tie. Now, aside from that, there are also effects on how we actually work, defining the workplace and the workstation that we are using when we are doing our job. And that is, prolonged screen time, usually because we are in our, safe haven, we are comfortable, and sometimes we are slouching in our bed, using our laptop, and also a prolonged sedentary position. Now, this is a problem. I will tell you later why, because this may lead into some serious problems later on if we are not aware why they should be avoided. Now, according to scientists, working from home as a setup will become an option in many organizations. And this is why, right now, because again of the pandemic, many companies are giving options to their workers to just go to their office twice a week, for example, 3 days in a week, they can stay at home. Well, my roommate is doing that. So that's a perfect example for me. So in this case, how would you make sure that your home office is set up not to provide discomfort or pain, or not to set you up into experiencing permanent disability when it comes to the condition that may develop later on. So most of the time when we are at home working, we may just not be noticing that we are using equipment or chairs and tables which are not really designed to for us to sit on while doing recording, for example, grades or checking, grading students' work or studying for students. And we may not notice that until we feel, this discomfort or pain. So just to give you a short definition of what I am leading into this, rather lengthy introduction, excuse me. The condition that we're trying to prevent here is what we term collectively as musculoskeletal disorders. OSHA gave a definition about musculoskeletal disorders, being disorders concerning the muscles, tendons, nerves, the spinal discs, which are not caused by accidents, for example, trips, falls, and so on and so forth. So basically, according to the BCPE, the Board of Certified Professional Ergonomists, the goal of ergonomics is to prevent musculoskeletal disorders. So I think my safety students here will recognize this familiar phrase. So why do we have to prevent musculoskeletal disorders then? Now, according to data published by the CDC in 2016, among Americans 18 years old and above, there's been a reported 124 million musculoskeletal cases in the US, right? That's a lot. That's almost half of the population, if I'm not mistaken, right? So why is this serious? It's because this is costly, and of course, this can become a permanent disability. So what does it mean when it comes to the economy? It means that, for example, in this data, once again published by the CDC, from 1996 to 1998 and 2012 to 2014, there has been a 220% increase in indirect costs, which is on lost wages, for example, and 131% increase in direct costs, which include treatment and medication. So you may now have to think, oh my goodness, my dining chair is contributing into this problem. Okay, and what can I do about that? And why should I be concerned? Okay, now let me move on. The first paper that I'm going to talk about is again the study that was conducted by the scientists at the University of Cincinnati the paper was published last year. So they assessed faculty and staff of the university. They asked them to send a photo back and side, and then they asked an ergonomist to assess this photo. Perhaps the paper didn't mention the specific methodology, assessment methodology, whether it is Rula or Reba or whatever. However, these two pictures were assessed, and they found what they found. I mean, their criteria in the assessment are these variables: the monitor, the chair, the work surfaces, okay, input devices, and type of workstation. So, for example, is the computer, if they're using two monitors, how is this position relative to the person using it, right? And you will know why later on, why all this matters. Okay, so according to their findings, they found that dining chair is one of the most commonly used among the respondents. Okay, so 11 of the 42 respondents, I believe, okay, use dining chair, and the type of workstation is they either sit, okay, on the bed or a couch, 3 people, well, sitting desk 35, that's a good number. However, of course, in health and safety, the health and safety of a single person is just as important as 5, right? Would you agree to that? Okay, so every single life, of course, health and safety of every single person matters here. So this is their findings. And aside from that, they also found that these are the specific problems that they found on their, for example, chair, okay, the height of the chair. So 17 people were found to be using chairs which are too low for their physique, for their body, for example. So, and how is that affecting their body? So for instance, if I will be using a chair that is too low, the tendency is I would have to raise my shoulders if I have to reach my desk, right? And if you do that for like 30 minutes an hour, that will cause pain on your neck and your shoulders. And if you do that every day for 8 hours because you are hardworking, you are very busy, you have a lot of things to do, that will cause, a condition, which is again MSDS collectively. So couch and bed, there is also reported respondents to be using that. And there are also people who use no lumbar support. So I call this guy Frank. I'm so sorry. That name is, I have to name my models because we should have a relationship. I use them every semester. So the lumbar region of the spine is right here, right? Now the lumbar region is very critical in determining the pain or the condition, which is MSDS, because usually one of the most common conditions is the low back pain, okay? With improper sitting, prolonged exposure to this different risk factors. So the spine is composed of 33 vertebrae, all right? The cervical, thoracic, the lumbar, the sacral, and the coccyx. Now, the site of pain is in this, is between, don't fall. Okay, the site of pain is between good job. Okay. Yeah. So the site of pain is between the in the intervertebral disc between L4 and L5, this one, okay, or L5 and S1, okay, this disc here. Now, when if you notice the structure of the spine, the vertebrae on the upper region are actually smaller than the lumbar region. It's because the lumbar region absorbs most of the shocks that is being accumulated by the body when we're standing or when we're jumping, when we are sitting, for example. All of the shocks are absorbed by the lumbar region of the spine. Now, the shock absorber, the cushioning that provides the support is your intervertebral disc. The intervertebral disc is actually composed of two main parts. You have the annulus fibrosus, and you have the nucleus pulposus. Okay, so what happens is that when we sleep, for example, I'll just divert into the physiology of the low back pain, because again, this is very common. It's not on the slides. I'd rather explain it. When we sleep, people would say that when we're lying down, we become taller. Have you heard that? Have you heard of that before? Okay, yes. Now, why is that? It's actually scientifically correct, because when we are lying down, resting, sleeping at night, the tendency of the disc is to expand the nucleus, reabsorbing water when we are lying down. Okay, so when we are upright, this fluid here, this water, is being utilized to provide the cushioning once again when that pressure is being accumulated in this region, because again, this is the region where all this cumulative stress are gathered. Okay, so it has a very critical job. However, because of personal risk factors, for example, aging, right, improper posture, right, all this exposure to different risk factors, may be personal or physical, or your chair simply doesn't have a lumbar support, the quality of your disc would deteriorate through time. And that may lead into permanent, problem if not treated. I've read a study that says that even if a person will undergo surgery, it doesn't necessarily restore the original status of the disc, and that is a serious problem. Okay, so in this photo here, in that study, examples of the common problems found on the home offices are the first one, poor chair, hard edge of the desk surface, external monitor off the side. Now, many of you may wonder, why is it important that the quality of the material that we are using when we are typing, for example, must be soft, okay? Must not cause how does it cause discomfort or musculoskeletal condition? Now remember that MSDS is defined as a disorder concerning also the nerves. Now, if it is a hard surface, usually contact pressure becomes a problem. Now, the longer that you press your forearm, for example, on a hard surface, the more that the nerve and the muscles there are exposed to the contact pressure, and that becomes problematic. Again, prolonged exposure, 8 hours a day, then that is a problem. Now, hard and non-adjustable wood chair, for example, again, if the chair is not accommodating the different heights of the user, or the monitor here, for example, is not on the letter C. There you go. It's not on the, I mean, the one large monitor to the side, laptop monitor too low, and no back chair. So these are just a few examples of the other problems they've seen. Now, how do we augment this type of problem? How do we remedy this? Okay, I'm sorry if sometimes my English is not smooth. I tell my students I don't speak English. Okay, so how do we remedy problems like a chair? Do we have budget for a chair, for an ergonomically friendly or designed chair? Does everybody has a budget? No. Expensive. Look at that photo. How much is an Ergo Chair Pro? Almost $500. I wouldn't be buying that. Okay. So, right? It's very expensive. So, and then here you go. Ideally, an ergonomically friendly chair has these components. All right. First one is adjustable height, again, accommodating those tall and shorter individuals. Adjustable armrest so that you'll have support for your forearm when you're typing, because it should not be abducted, it should not be raised, it should just be there, lying like normally, right? So comfortably. It should also have 5 casters, right? And the lumbar support, once again, for your lumbar region of the spine, okay? It should also be present. So however, again, it is very expensive to buy that kind of chair. So let's have a DIY, okay? A do-it-yourself remedy. So what would you do to make sure that you don't experience this discomfort and pain? Okay, the first one is simply putting a pillow so that your height will be elevated. Of course, we have a lot of pillows at home, right? Okay, so as simple as that. You can also put a pillow, rolled up towel behind the back to provide lumbar support. So if your dining chair, if you're using your dining chair, the seat pad is quite wide, so it doesn't reach your lumbar region. Okay, and oftentimes we're not so aware of that. You may put a pillow behind your back just to support your lumbar region here. The third one, wrapping the armrest when they are low and not adjustable. So if you put some again towels to wrap it there, it would give you an additional inches to the armrest. So move the chair closer to the desk or table to encourage having the back against the back of the seat. So like in my case, people would probably think he has a major in ergonomics. Perhaps he's always perfectly observing all these ergonomic principles. Fake news. Doesn't happen. Okay. Why? It's hard. Again, when you are in your element, you forget all this. Just, oh my goodness, this material for my class tomorrow has to be done by 6 o'clock. Okay. You don't remember all this. However, again, at home, if we try to encourage ourselves every day to be aware of this do-it-yourself remedies, then we might prevent, adding to that number of the prevalence of MSDS. So using a laptop in a DIY potential fixes. Okay, first one is placing a lap desk or large pillow under the laptop. I think some of us would already do this, okay, because we already feel the pain or discomfort. So using an external keyboard, for example, so you place your laptop there and you have an external keyboard or monitor. And again, if you don't have this, then just do number 1. Okay, at least little fixes here and there. So number 3 here is that when possible, use an external monitor at right height and centered on the person. Now, I know that the title of this presentation is home office, but it doesn't limit us into applying this to any offices where we could possibly work at, okay? So for example, with your monitors, many of us would use 2 monitors because when you're writing something, it's easy to just look at it and do that. However, remember that your primary monitor should be facing directly in front of you, and your secondary or tertiary should be on the sides, okay? And why is that? It's because when you move to your side, often okay, you are actually diverting from one body plane to another. And that is also posing a risk into your spine, okay, when you're doing that. And imagine doing that, you know, every minute because your primary monitor is here. That it just again it would pose you into discomfort. So top of the eye height, so that the top of your monitor should be level to your eyes. Okay, that is very important and centered on the person. Now, when using a dual or multiple monitors, it is key that keep the primary monitor, as what the picture is, telling us, in front or directly in front of us. Now, Workstation Desk DIY potential fixes. I've seen workstations like this before, and I thought, wow, that's really creative and innovative, I think. So using, for example, a towel once again on the edge of the table or desk to reduce the contact stress due to hard edge, or a pipe insulation like this one, okay, or a pool noodle. We don't have that in the Philippines. We have beaches. That's why. Just to make you jealous. Okay, so now, why is it important for us to be aware of our posture when we are working? Now, the variety of postures that we do would determine once again our exposure to this hazard, okay, to the risk of developing MSDS. Now, maintaining this a certain posture throughout the day would lead into different, pains, not only MSDS, but also other different conditions, for example, diabetes, cardiovascular conditions, and other health-related issues. So what should you do to make sure that you are changing your posture? For example, every 30 minutes, rule of thumb, you should stand up and move for at least 2 minutes, okay? So this is also effective because in case you are already feeling exhausted by looking at the monitor, the visual strain, okay, which is also another ergonomic issue, would be prevented at the same time. So every 30 minutes, make it a habit, go to the restroom, make coffee, or walk around. In my case, I would get a glass of water or something. Just do something as simple as those. Maintain a fluid posture, switch between sitting and standing desk throughout the day. Once again, at home, we don't have that, mechanical, or we don't have the disc that is pressed on the side. There's a button, then it would elevate. Very expensive once again. What should you do with your monitor? Okay, you have a pile of books that you don't use anymore because you've read them 20 times already. You've memorized the content. So use them as your as the material where you will be putting your monitor on. So you will be able to sit down and stand at this, also throughout the day. So stretching also during micro breaks. My dissertation used a intervention material where micro breaks was being promoted. So, for example, in these photos here, okay, simply stretching your arms, okay, for 10 to 15 seconds, okay, in this position too. It will relax your muscles and and your musculoskeletal system there. So here you go. So this is a paper that I got accepted for publication this year. In this study, I tried to determine whether giving ergonomic interventions to a certain group of workers, in this case, call center workers, in which also can be termed as, they can also be categorized as office workers. I tried to see if giving them some ergonomic interventions would help, improve their body pain or conditions. So what I did was, this is a case control study. I have two groups. I had experimental and control group. And then there were 32 workers, okay? Half of those were experimental and half was in the control group. And a brochure was given. There was an orientation on the second day after meeting them, and then told them exactly right what to do. And then I designed. I talked to them. I talked to them one by one, and then I checked how they are actually doing their job. Okay, and then position the monitor once again. All those fixes. Okay, so and then I took photos and videos to analyze their postures and biomechanical activities of the body later on. And then afterwards, I assessed their body pain or discomfort by using a survey, right? What is your level of pain before and after the intervention? So this is just the characteristics, demographic profiles of the respondents. So let us look at this primary outcome measures results. So rapid upper limb. So with RULA, it only assesses the upper body of the subject. With the entire body, it includes the legs. So if you will see here, we have the experimental group. You have the mean, the standard deviation. So the p-value shows that there was a significant difference between the means, the scores of mean, meaning to say their postures indeed improved after 4 weeks of intervention. Okay, so similar also with the mean of the case in the control group, pre and post. Okay, significant differences also were found in their posture. Now, this is that was the RULA. Okay, and this is the REBA, the same story, right? So improvement in the postures. However, with the secondary measure being the body part discomfort questionnaire as the assessment tool, it showed a different trend, no improvement. You know why? The reason behind is that the intervention lasted only for 4 weeks. And for the pain or condition to be improved, it needs to be sustainable, it needs to be longer. Okay? In fact, many previous studies found that, if you do it, they observed 3-year period, these workers, and they were given ergonomic interventions. It worked, right? Also, their body discomfort level also decreased. Okay. However, in my study, 4 weeks is not enough. So, what are the takeaways in this presentation? So, the first one is that musculoskeletal disorder as a collective condition involving tendons, ligaments, the bones, and the muscles is very costly, right? And with the current crisis that we are still in, we do not know if there is an end in sight, and some people will still be working from home. Okay, and again, the condition is cumulative, meaning it doesn't happen overnight, and once it happens, it's there forever. Okay, so due to the COVID-19 pandemic, office workers are given an option to permanently work from home. So because of that, we may have to be aware that we need to make sure that our workstation at home is at least ergonomically friendly using the DIYs that I have just discussed. So following easy to follow ergonomic interventions can be done to improve home office setup. Okay, so postures also, according to the findings that I just mentioned, improve when following proper office ergonomics. However, long-term ergonomic intervention is needed to prevent related or work-related MSDS or discomfort or pain. Okay, so I tried my best to make it as friendly as possible, okay, for our audience who are not in job, who doesn't maybe understand so much about ergonomics. So I hope with this presentation you have taken something relevant and applicable to your everyday lives. And with that, thank you very much, and I'm ready for some questions.
to start off, so we looked back at an early slide, you showed an increase in both the medical expense as well as lost wages. And just wondering, are there kind of societal or life factors that you tie that increase in the MSDSs to?
I'm sorry.
So you look at like between 1996 and then 2012, 2014, right? We're seeing a big increase in the, I'm assuming, not just the expense, but also the number of people who are experiencing.
Yes.
And what are kind of the overall lifestyle factors that you would connect that rise to, like more desk jobs or or obesity or?
Yeah, I have the same theory, but the data that is published, I mean, actually this infographic that was published by the CDC did not specify the different specific factors. However, it is again evident that again the lifestyle of people has changed over time since this period, right? For example, a lot of young people are now involved in gaming, right? Computer gaming. So 18 and above reporting musculoskeletal disorders. That could be possible, or in the workplace, perhaps, you know, a lot of sedentary jobs. Right? So, however, don't hold me on this because again, I did not look at the specifics of this data. So, yeah. I'm not sure if I answered that question.
Do you think just with the COVID pandemic and everything going on, like this topic of ergonomics will be better educated with people, just like more talked about and better inform people about it?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah, that's a very good question. In fact, you know, when I was doing my master's and PhD in Korea, whenever they would ask me, my friends, at least in the Philippines, what ergonomics is, so is it related to economics? Almost similar in spelling. And sound, but no. So with that example, for instance, what I'm trying to say is that people are now becoming aware. So in fact, I received some invitations while I was still in Korea to do some talks about office ergonomics and, you know, informing workers, teachers, for example. So they're becoming aware, and this is a good thing because this is one of the positive things that has been brought by this crisis, because we are now becoming more conscious of our posture, of our, you know, of our lifestyle, for example, because some of us have stopped, you know, working out, becoming active, and all this affect our total, you know, health. So yeah, I think that the awareness has increased because of the pandemic, right?
To the point of why there are more cases now than there were before, one of the factors is, two factors in particular. One is we can diagnose these cases with MRI and
Technology.
which we really weren't able to do in a lot of places in 1995. Secondly, employers are asking employees to report symptoms earlier than they used to. So instead of waiting to the point where they're totally debilitated, certainly they're getting into physical therapy already. So that's probably
That is very true, Bray. Thank you so much. It just reminded me also to the fact that musculoskeletal disorders is a compensable condition in the US according to OSHA, if I'm correct. So in other countries, it's not yet considered to be compensable, but in work-related musculoskeletal disorders, if proven, okay, to be work-related, they could get money for hospitalization, lost wages. And you are correct. That the technology that we have now, the reporting early on with the symptoms, if it is work-related, all can be accounted in this dramatic increase throughout this period. So thank you. Wonderful point. Other questions?
There's a question in the chat. Justin from Cincinnati is asking, do you recommend telling your employees that if they do get hurt working from home or have pain from the working stations, to report it, since we as the company can own it since it happened on the clock? Have you seen in your studies an increase in home work related increase?
I would say absolutely yes. Okay, so you just change your venue for your work, but your work did not change. Okay, so you're still working for your organization. So it should be reported, okay? It should be considered as a work-related condition if indeed symptoms are experienced. Now, what is the follow-up question? Sorry.
Have you seen in your studies an increase in comorbidity?
My study was conducted pre-COVID, so I couldn't have that data. However, they study also, the other study that I included in this presentation did not really look at the trend, okay, pre-COVID and during COVID. So unfortunately, I couldn't answer the question, the follow-up question. Katie?
Excited to be getting to it, or did you find it harder to enforce? And you ended up doing the intervention for them, so the school were receptive to it, or was it harder to?
That is a good question because in every research that involves people, actual workers, the challenge is always convincing them to participate. I think my fellow researchers here can relate to that. That's the biggest challenge. So they are hesitant, but when they knew that they could meet Lee Min Ho when some other K-pops, if they participate, no, I'm kidding. Now, I explained to them the benefits. I think communication here is really important, making them understand the long-term benefit of understanding how these interventions, for example, the objective of your study is beneficial in the long term, helps, make them excited and participate. However, one of the downsides of this kind of studies is that you cannot watch people 24/7, right? Or at least during that 8-hour period in their working days, okay? If they're religiously following this intervention. So that is also one of the factors that we should include in our equation, whether or not, the survey is indeed accurate. So, but when it comes to convincing them, as with any, sort of survey, it is a challenge, a real challenge. But thank God I had 32 respondents. Jim.
Yeah, thanks, Lena. I really appreciated the presentation. It made me think about my own personal setup in my office and all the rules that I was you presented here. I wonder can you speak at all to some of the alternatives to chairs that we've seen a lot of in the past few years, people standing at their desks for the day, or I don't know the name of it, but the type of chair where your knees are very forward and on the ground, almost like you're kneeling on 2 knees.
I haven't seen the type of chair, but that sounds like something that should be considered by the SPD people. Hi, everybody from SPD. But what I have seen so far is a yoga ball, for example, right? Or a treadmill, In fact, they study from that university, they have this person, but the trip and fall could also, be a factor there. So other things that would let you, maintain a dynamic posture, okay, kind of chair, but with the design, the particular design of the chair, I am not actually aware of all these new advancements in chairs. However, when we look at a chair, we just have to make sure that those components are present, okay? So at least at the minimum. But however, if you have a yoga ball, you cannot have 5 casters in a yoga ball. Okay, I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, what about people standing up at their desks? Is there enough data out there to suggest?
Oh yeah, so prolonged standing is also bad. Obviously.
Yeah.
Okay. So you should not stand for the whole 8 hours. Okay, that's also gonna pose risk into your, strain into the muscles and nerves and blood vessels in the body. No, that's why you need to be dynamic in your posture. You should sit down when you have to. The good thing, the best thing about the human body is that it tells us when exactly to change posture. We just have to stop being hard-headed. Okay? So the human body, for example, this is skeletal system model here. The human body is designed to become mobile. Okay, although some would say, why is it that we feel so much better when we are, lying on the bed or watching TV and so comfortable, sitting down? That's actually the opposite. Okay, our body with more than 300 joints and more than 700 skeletal muscles is designed to move, and we should move. Okay, so yeah, you have to be able to sit and stand at the same time. I mean, interchange. I don't speak English, Calvin. Pardon me. Okay, so yes, Calvin.
Since MSDs aren't always acute injuries, can you like go back on a company and say and try to prove that it was caused by them like 10 years down the road or 20 years?
That is actually a good question because you know what? The safety professionals, especially specifically professional ergonomists, our job is to provide prevention strategies. The job of medical doctors and physical therapists is for rehabilitation and medication when the condition is already there, proliferating. Okay, our job is to prevent. So prevent that from happening in the first place. So if a worker, for example, is experiencing symptoms once again because the job is highly sedentary, it should be reported, okay, early on so that it could be prevented from proliferating. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah. What if you just don't really realize it when you look back and you're like, you know what, all those days of moving furniture or something, that might have done it.
Well, you can still make your case, and that is why there should be like a risk assessment of your job. Once again, the condition is there. Okay, ask a safety professional who's knowledgeable in ergonomics to assess the job. And then when they find that, or if they find that the job indeed poses the worker into developing this pain and discomfort or a condition after 10 years, 20 years, it should be compensable. OSHA will definitely say, yes, you should be paid. You should do the rehab. You should, whatever necessary interventions there to gain your health, back your health. Okay, so yeah, okay, you're 22, so don't worry.
Sit up straight.
Jesse.
I'm glad you mentioned the 5 caster because that you put out there, I was curious. Why 5?
I should have majored in industrial engineering. I believe just my guess, help me out here, anybody who's knowledgeable in engineering design. Maybe to balance the weight, right? But you could balance it in why 5. That's a good question. Yeah, I don't really have a concrete answer, okay? But I believe it has something to do with the weight of the person being, again, pulled, okay, into the seat pad. So if there are 5 casters, you will make sure that this weight is distributed evenly into these 5 legs or let's just say feet of the seat. So that's just my not so intelligent guess. Okay, we still have to test that in another research sponsored by Embrace. Oh, hi. Hi. Thank you for coming.
I wonder if a little bit of geometry is involved. If you have 4,
Oh, mathematics
if
major.
you have 4, depending on if they're not all the same length, there could be more shifting back and forth and things like that. With 5, you're gonna have a much more stable, a much more stable chair.
I can give a perfect example with the geometry. I was dragging Frank all the way from the 3rd floor of the science center. There are 5 casters in this, thing, but the other 2 are broken. I was carrying my bag too, and a bottle of water. I stopped several times because his jaw fell. I'm so sorry, biology friends. Okay, so thank you, Uncle. Geometry.
Those 4 will tend to support it. The 5th one is a little bit out. 4 will tend to support 3 certainly. 3 is okay.
Yeah, 3 is a plane.
3 is perfect. 3 is perfect. Yeah, because 3 is.
3 is perfect, 4 is not, and 5 is the best.
Like Frank fell on
3 is
3,
probably
right?
is good. Yeah, 3 is probably. There must be a reason why not to use 3.
I wonder if you're rolling.
That's what Jeff was gonna come in with the
Yes, Brian.
If you lean over this phrase, if you lean over, you will topple over. The reason you don't use four is you need more stability. So you could lean over in the wrong angle, and the chair will go over. So five gives more stability.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have this as 5. I'll sit on it. Yes,
So as a teacher, you've learned all these practices. How do you incorporate it into the classroom?
a perfect question. You should take my 6 to 15. for you to know. Okay. So I'm teaching to 15, and in my classroom, I cannot always tell my students to, watch your posture, okay? Because depending on what class I'm teaching. So for example, in my 101, I insert here and there, a little bit of ergonomics, but not really every day. Because they would be wondering why I'm talking about ergonomics, when it is just simply safety awareness. However, if I see that the student, for example, is slouching for the whole period, then I would have to remind the student to, sit properly because it is posing risk into the lumbar region of the spine. Okay, so, but again, this is a misconception with people who have major ergonomics that we are always aware. No, we are just same as you guys. We cannot always be aware. I hope that my answer makes sense.
Move breaks, move and stretch breaks in your classes.
I give them 5 minutes break. Oh my God, my dean is asking me like that. So there are breaks. I actually ask them to stretch. Okay. I actually ask them to, students are free to move. Okay, to have dynamic postures. We don't have to tell you guys to be aware of your posture all the time. Because again, our own body would tell us so when we need to change, our sitting position. Okay, and I have nothing against you when you're standing, when you feel that your back is starting to hurt, then stand. As long as you're not doing a monkey dance there. Some steps will be entertaining too. Okay. Katie.
Learning about it for an hour and 45 minutes. So like you're thinking about your own posture, so if you're not gonna fix that, you're not gonna fix it. So like you don't have to be told something that you're being lectured on. So it's not, I don't think it's
So it also helps to be in the class because here
You're
and there is
aware.
being mentioned. Okay, so become more aware. All right, so guys, 252 sections next semester. Marketing. Okay. I'm getting, yes, Lynn.
So there's a comment in the chat box from Wanda, I assume it's Wanda Swiger in human performance. And it reflects, I believe, that question about proving injury decades later. And she notes that degeneration begins in the second decade of life. So we know that it's challenging to prove work-related impacts.
Yes, that is a tricky one. I mean, at least we determining whether it is work-related or not. I'm not very sure of how, doctors identify it as work-related, okay, the medical side of the condition. Because again, the degeneration happens early on. So thank you, Wanda, for that comment. I think that is very helpful. So we should ask OSHA more how they would assess if it's work-related. Other questions?
No other questions? We're right about at the end of class time, so join me in